The Sinister Secrets of Australia's Cursed Baby Farmers, 100 Innocent Lives Exposed and Haunted. Lila stumbled across the attic, her hands shaking as the dust stirred, catching the pale sunlight streaming through the window. The air was thick with memories, and her heart raced not just from the physical effort but from an instinctual dread that clenched at her insides. In her quest for a long-lost family heirloom, the box she uncovered drew her in like a moth to a flame, revealing yellowed newspaper clippings with sensational headlines like, "Children Vanish Without a Trace," and, "The Charity Beneath the Smiles, 100 Innocent Lives Exposed." She couldn't breathe. The eerie tales of child disappearances swirled through her mind, evoking whispers of darkness that her late husband had often warned against. Grief wrapped around her like fog, but the creeping horror of the article sent icy fingers down her spine. Lila bit her lip, recalling hushed conversations, desperate warnings about Mrs. Collins, the ever-sweet advocate of their community always promising help, but what did that help really mean? Piled under the clippings, her favorite photo of Ella and Max as they laughed in the park, their innocence almost mocking her now. She could almost hear them giggling, but it felt wrong. Shadows began to flicker at the edges of her vision, whispering, taunting. Her children had started talking about an imaginary friend recently, a being who seemed to thrive on the fear she tried so desperately to suppress. "Stay close," they would say, their voices bubbling with an unnatural excitement. "Trust no one." As Lila dialed the local authorities, her heart pounded. Hushed tones of dismissal and sympathy on the other end left her feeling utterly alone. "Just grieving," they said, their impatience barely hidden. The suburban normalcy that had blanketed her life began to fray, twisting into something sinister. Max and Ella would stare blankly, entranced by the empty corners of their playroom, their laughter echoing hollow and eerie. Scratch marks marred the walls of her home as if something was trying to claw its way inside. Her heart hammered involuntarily as her stomach twisted. The flickering light in her living room cast long shadows that danced and flickered, breathing life into those dark corners. That night, as thunder screamed and raindrops lashed against the windows, Lila heard it muffled giggles, almost mocking in their innocence, accompanied by a low, distorted whisper. Taking a deep breath, she crept down the hall, dread clamping around her throat. She opened the door to their room just a crack, and that sight stole her breath. Ella and Max sat cross-legged, their gazes affixed to a spot in the corner, a place devoid of anything. The laughter twisted, morphing into something deeper, more sinister, echoing like an old record stuck in a loop. "Who are you talking to?" she gasped, but there was no answer. The storm raged on, and Lila shivered, feeling the darkness closing in. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As dawn broke, the storm passed, but the weight of horror still lurked. A new family had moved in across the street. They were friends with Mrs. Collins. Lila's blood turned cold as she pieced the puzzle together. Each fragment shone under the sun, revealing threads of old darkness binding her community. Her search for truth could lead her to the roots of evil, but with shadows whispering taunts, she wondered, could she protect her children from the grasp of the unseen? The chilling thought echoed through her mind as she felt the stirring darkness creep ever closer, claiming its next victims. "They're coming for you," it seemed to whisper, and Lila knew she had to act before it was too late. The morning light felt weak and distorted, as if the world outside was holding its breath. Lila stared blankly out the window, heart still racing from the chaos of the night. The sight of the new family across the street sent a shiver down her spine. Their welcome smiles felt like the grins of wolves cloaked in sheep's clothing. Ella and Max had returned to their playful routines, but she couldn't shake the sense of dread gnawing at her insides. Those giggles. Lila shuddered. They were no longer innocent. An unfamiliar darkness began to lace itself through her thoughts, twisting memories, and painting familiar faces in an eerie shade of sinister. After breakfast, Lila decided to confront Mrs. Collins, a nervous entanglement of confrontation and fear igniting within her. Surely she could shed some light on the newcomers? Cloaked in determination, she marched across the street, her heart pounding with every step. With each ding of the neighbor's wind chime, the tension intensified. Mrs. Collins greeted her at the door with that same unnerving smile plastered across her face. "Lila, it's wonderful to see you." Her voice, as sweet as honey, made Lila wince. She was not to be trusted. "Could I speak to you for a moment?" Lila asked, her voice steady, but her insides twisted in turmoil. "Of course, dear. Come in." Mrs. Collins' eyes twinkled like dark gemstones. As Lila stepped inside, she noticed pictures of children adorning the walls, smiling faces that felt desperately frozen in time, much too perfect. "Your new neighbors. Are they really nice people?" Lila asked, forcing the words out. "Oh, lovely. Such good parents, passionate about helping the community," Mrs. Collins replied, her eyes glinting with something unnameable. "I heard they moved in after a tragedy." Lila probed, searching for a crack in the facade. The air grew thick with tension, hanging like fog around her. Mrs. Collins chuckled lightly, but it felt empty. "Things happen. We all have our burdens to carry. But you mustn't dwell on such dark thoughts. Think of the children." Lila's heart raced. "I'm just worried about my kids. They've been acting strange lately, and children are drawn to the unknown, Lila." "You should let them explore," the woman interrupted, her voice sliding into something sinister. "They may just find a friend." The warning bells in Lila's mind rang loud and clear, but Mrs. Collins' expression was now a mask of sweetness. "Now, shall I bring you tea? It might clear your head." "No, thank you." Lila snapped before spinning on her heel, desperate to escape. Outside, the sun felt obscured, the shadows lurking closer. As she returned home, panic clawed at the edges of her mind. What if she was wrong? But the whispers were louder now, coiling tighter around her thoughts. Ella and Max were in the yard, giggling again. But this time, their laughter sent ripples of dread through her. She could hear it, the whispers. They were coming from the children, flickering flicks of familiarity mixed with chilling strangeness. "Mommy! Mommy! Come see!" Ella yelled, her voice giddy with a mix of innocence and something darker. Ignoring the weight of despair, Lila rushed outside. In the corner of the yard, tipped over, was a wooden crate, its lid slightly ajar. She approached hesitantly, her heart pounding like a war drum. Peering inside, her breath caught a swarm of old toys, dusty but oddly familiar. Each one haunted by the hollow laughter of children lost. The darkness swirled around her, thickening as those whispers became screams. "Mommy!" Max cried out again, eyes wide and searching. But before she could respond, the shadows pulsed like a living thing. From her peripheral vision, she spotted movement more than just her children. Figures seemed to emerge from the very depths of the shadows, shapes of long-lost faces twisted in expressions of longing and despair, all seeking at once. The laughter crescendoed into something terrifying. Lila's world fractured as she felt a pull toward the figures, drawn into a void she couldn't escape. "No!" she screamed, grabbing Max and Ella, but the whispers became a cacophony, and she could feel something clawing at her trying to take them. She had to act now, or they'd be swept away like so many others. With a fierce shout, she plunged her hand into the crate, grasping at whatever she could, desperate to find a weapon against the dark. And then, something cold wrapped around her wrist let go. She screamed, dragging against the surging tide of shadows. As darkness swallowed her scream, Lila felt herself drawn deeper into the unknown, the glimmer of a lonely truth flickering just beyond her reach. The shadows had their hold on her children, and she realized too late, the dear price of ignorance. What awaited her in the darkness? And more horrifying, would she be able to drag her children back into the light? Lila's vision blurred as the shadows coiled tighter, wrapping around her limbs like barbed wire. The weight of dread pushed her deeper into the abyss, it seeped into her bones, chilling her soul. The coldness seared at her skin, and just when she felt she might drown in despair, she heard it, the laughter again, fractured and twisted, echoing as if mocking her desperation. "Mommy!" Ella's voice pierced through the cacophony. But it didn't sound right. It was too high, too distant, it carried an unsettling undertone that sent ice through Lila's veins. The figures grew clearer, their shapes becoming grotesque in the dim light. They were children, yes, but their faces whispered of things only long forgotten, buried beneath the earth and wrapped in sorrow. "Max! Ella!" She cried, but the darkness swallowed her words. Her scream became a whimper as she felt a pull from beyond the shadows wanted her, hungered for her fear. "Mommy, help us!" This time the plea came from Max, his eyes wide and terrified. Lila clutched at the crate still in her grasp, her heart had never raced so fast. She could not lose them. They were her world, the light that had once driven away the dark. In a frantic motion, she yanked a battered toy from the crate, a tiny, red fire truck, and hefted it like a shield. "Stay back!" she yelled, channeling everything inside into a single word. The shadows quivered, as if her defiance caused them pain. But they surged in closer, faces blurring together as if they weren't quite real. Their laughter grew louder, morphing into cries of anguish and rage, each one tugging at her sanity. "Release us!" they shrieked, their eyes hollow, void of life, and yet full of sorrow. "I want to lose you!" Lila screamed over the din, tightening her grip on the fire truck. She felt a sudden heat radiate from it, an unfamiliar warmth that pulsed in tandem with her racing heart. She charged forward, plunging the toy into the darkness. "Release my children!" The moment the toy made contact with the shadows, the world erupted in a blinding flash. She was thrown back as the shadows shrieked a raw, inhuman sound that echoed through her very bones. Lila landed hard on the grass, a jarring pain shooting through her shoulder. Gasping for breath, the world around her spun. Dazed, she blinked against the rising light. She looked desperately for Max and Ella. Heart racing, she scanned the wreckage of shadows that had now dissipated. "Ella! Max!" The panic gripped her, clutching her heart like a vice. Shadows receded, but she felt no relief. Where were her children? Then she heard it, a soft giggle, familiar yet haunting. Her head whipped around. There, emerging from the edges of the yard, a figure moved, one of the new family's children. But it wasn't just one, it was an entire group. Dark-eyed, crooked smiles playing on their lips as they danced around a swirling fog that still lingered. Lila's heart sank, a dread-filled realization warming the pit of her stomach. They were calling all of them. Ella and Max were in there, among their friends, but those smiles, were they enticed or entrapped? "Join us, Lila." The strange child beckoned, and all at once, the laughter from all around melded into a chilling harmony. "Mommy, come play." Ella's innocent voice rang out again, sweet and sickening. It echoed through her, raising the hairs on the back of her neck. "No! Stay away from them!" Lila shouted, her voice thick with fear, searching frantically for the right words that had lingered in her mind, connections to the past intertwining. But did she want to? Were they lost? Where was the line between saving her children and losing herself? Before she could decide, the shadows twisted back toward the children, melding into dark shapes. An otherworldly force seemed to compel Lila forward, the air thick with whispers of forgotten nightmares. "Help us," they whispered in unison, bridging the gap between light and dark, and Lila felt her resolve teetering on the edge of collapse. What dark truth awaited her in this twisted game? Could she really stand between her babies and the hell that beckoned, or would the memories of the lost claim them all? As she plunged forward, desperation driving her, a chilling question echoed in her mind: how far would she go to save her family from the abyss? The moment Lila stepped forward, it was as if the ground shifted underneath her, the air thickening with every breath she took. She felt the weight of shadows sucking her in, drawing her closer to the group of children laughing in that twisted, unsettling melody. They danced around the fog like marionettes, pulling her towards the very heart of darkness. "Come on, Mommy." Ella's voice rang out again, her laughter mixing with the others, a sinister echo that wrapped itself around Lila. The child she once knew seemed to dissolve into the creepy ring of dark-eyed figures. Panic surged through Lila. This wasn't Ella. Not anymore. Max. Ella. Listen to me. She pleaded, her voice trembling. But they only giggled, their heads thrown back, their vacant eyes sparkling with a malevolence that twisted her stomach. Each laugh was a taunt, each smile a crumbling foundation of hope. "Please. You have to fight this." Every step closer to them felt like wading through tar, her limbs heavy with fear. Lila's hands trembled, the fire truck still gripped tightly, its heat now flickering like a dying flame. The crumpled toy felt impossibly small against the vibrant evil around her. Were those truly her children? Could they still hear her? Suddenly, from the mass of shadows, a child slipped forward. A girl with ripped clothes and a crown of dark curls. She stepped out of the fog, letting a chilling hush fall over the others. "Join us," she said, her voice eerily sweet. "You can have them back." "How?" Lila croaked, every instinct screaming to turn away. "Tell me." "Just let go," the girl chimed, her smile full of promises soaked in despair, "and everything will be fine. They're better with us, they've always been better with us." "No!" Lila shouted, stepping back, her heart pounding furiously, but invisible chains began to pull at her, binding her to the fog. The laughter crescendoed, the children moving languidly in a dance so hypnotic, each move steeped in ancient malice. The shadows clutched at her knees, clawed at her mind, tugging her into their dreadful embrace. The whispers intensified, churning like boiling water in her ears, phrases drifting just out of reach like long-forgotten dreams: "Join us. Release them. Become one." Her children's faces, those sweet smiles, flashed before her eyes, their laughter echoing through her memory. She could almost reach out for them, grasp those familiar hands as she had done so many times, but the shadows crawled up her sides, wrapping tighter, squeezing her breath away, tearing her apart from the inside out. "Mommy, don't be scared." Max's voice rang clear. It cut through the shadows, fresh and innocent, igniting a spark of determination within her. "We need you." The force propelled her, sending a jolt through her limbs. She had to fight. Clutching the fire truck, she hurled it at the writhing shadows, fueled by sheer desperation. The noise of crashing laughter faltered, and for a fleeting moment, the fog recoiled, revealing the frightened faces of her children. "Mommy!" Ella cried as the laughter of the darker children stuttered with confusion. It was enough, it was a glimpse of her children breaking through the dark mist. Lila locked onto that moment, focusing with everything she had. "Come to me," she shouted, her voice raw, forcing the words past the encroaching darkness. The shadows screamed, torn between Lila's fierce will and the fear wrapped around her children. "You're stronger than this. Fight." The shadows twisted, the balance holding by a thread. The grotesque forms squirmed like they were on fire. The circle of dark-eyed children trembled, their grip weakening, their laughter turning into cries of agony, but just then, the earth beneath Lila began to tremble. A chilling wind swept through the yard, howling like a banshee, rising from the depths of that cursed place, joining the cacophony of cries. Lila stumbled, feeling the violent pull of the darkness stronger than ever, a lurching sensation as if she were being torn in two suddenly and without warning. The ground gave way. What lay below? Was it a way to salvation or an eternal prison? With the last of her strength, she lunged towards the light, towards her children. But what would she find if she fell into that chasm? Would it transform her forever? The ground shuddered beneath her as she hurtled toward the unknown, and with a final, bone-chilling laugh echoing behind her, Lila was consumed by the dark the abyss beckoned, its whispered promises coating her soul. What awaited at the bottom of that harrowing fall? Would she recognize her children if she found them? Or would she become just another shadow among the lost? Lila's heart raced as she plummeted into the void. Time stretched and warped as the darkness enveloped her, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. The air thickened, stale and heavy, with tinges of despair swirling in every breath. She braced herself for impact, knowing that whatever awaited could propel her deeper into the haunting shadows lurking behind her. When she finally landed, it was like crashing into cold water. The darkness shattered around her, revealing an expanse that felt more like a forgotten underworld than the hellish playground above. Wisps of the fog twisted ominously, dancing at the edges of her vision, but it was the sight of twisted trees and tattered toys crawling with decay that truly settled the dread in her stomach. Lila pushed herself to her feet, her body trembling from the impact and the lingering fear. "Max! Ella!" she called, her voice echoing against unseen walls, swallowed quickly by the oppressive silence. Each step felt foreign, as if the ground itself recoiled from her presence. She could feel the remnants of her last screaming act still anchoring her to the surface above, yet here, everything felt wrong. The toys scattered across the ground seemed to whisper tales of sorrow, sights of bittersweet childhood now transformed into nightmarish relics. Broken dolls with hollow eyes betrayed tales of lost innocence, their cracked bodies littering the path like grim trophies of the malevolent forces at play. Lila squeezed her eyes shut, focusing on the vision of Ella's actual face, the real laughter that came from her child's lips. "Stay strong," she murmured to herself, but pull of the shadows gnawed at her, the whispers creeping in again. Leave this place." They grew louder, inviting her to surrender, to become part of their choir of anguish. Suddenly, the landscape shifted again, the ground trembled underfoot, and the dilapidated trees began to lean in, their gnarled branches stretching toward her like accusatory fingers. Among the rubble, she caught a flicker of movement. "Ella?" Before she could react, a shadow darted past. It was fast, almost too fast to see a fleeting glimpse of her daughter's curly hair. Lila's heart leaped. "Ella!" she shouted, breaking into a run. But with every step she took, dark tendrils reached up to ensnare her, wrapping around her ankles like chains forged in nightmare. Panic surged within her, the air thickening and chilling as whispers corrupted her thoughts. "Just let go, you only hurt yourself by holding on." "No!" Lila screamed, her voice cracking. She struggled against the binding shadows, her mind racing with thoughts of her children. "Not again." Then, abruptly, she broke free. The tendrils recoiled, as if lashed backward by an unseen force. A wave of despair retreated, allowing her a moment. It didn't last long. The darkness roared, revealing smoky faces twisted in agony, reaching out, pleading, but tucked between their cold fingers, she spotted the familiar fabric of a small jacket. The bright color blazed against the murky background. "Ella!" Another rush, this time fueled by sheer desperation, propelled her forward. She neared the garment, but the shadows converged faster. Faces twisted in madness barred her way, eyes dark and empty, echoing the hollow laughter that once danced in her children's voices. Lila shoved past them, adrenaline surging. She grabbed the jacket, feeling a fading warmth within it, like a last heartbeat. "Where are you, sweetheart?" And then she saw it, the outline of a familiar figure stirring in the shadows, small and fragile, crouched low as if hiding from something monstrous. "Ella!" Lila gasped, relief flooding her heart as she reached toward the silhouette. "Mommy?" The voice was soft, yet laced with untold fear. Lila's breath caught in her throat, but before she could close the distance, the shadows surged forward, roaring like a beast awakened. They twisted and expanded, a storm of darkness surrounding her, blocking her path. "You can't. They belong to us," the chorus echoed around her, each voice dripping with malice. In that moment of horror, a glimmer of light flickered in the distance, beyond the writhing shadows. What was it? Safe haven or a cruel trick? Lila hesitated, torn between the darkness that would devour her and the flicker of hope beckoning from afar. Would she reach her daughter before it was too late? Or was the light just another illusion meant to lead her deeper into despair? The shadows writhed like living things, casting grotesque shapes across the ground. Lila's heart drummed in her chest as she weighed her choices. The light quivered in the darkness, a fragile star in a hellish abyss. It dared her to trust it, to take that leap of faith. Ella! She cried again, desperation clawing at her throat. With each shout, the shadows shrieked, their grotesque faces swirling around her, overlapping, merging into a twisted tapestry of agony. I'm coming for you. Without thinking, she darted toward the light, feeling the ground shift and lurch beneath her feet. The shadows clawed at her, relentless, hungry. With each stride, she felt moments of icy dread as whispers grazed her mind, urging her to falter. Don't let her go, she is ours. But Lila pushed through, the image of Ella's smiling face pushing her onward. She could almost feel the warmth of her daughter's embrace, she could almost hear her laughter drowning out the sinister murmurs that sought to ensnare her. The distance shortened, and the light grew, its glow illuminating an old, tattered swing set perched beside a rusted playground. The familiar setting twisted her insides. Memories bubbled to the surface, both sweet and sharp, Ella and Max laughing as they played. Stay with me, please, she whispered, fighting against the darkness that coiled around her, dragging her down. Just a little longer. Just as she thought she might reach it, the ground shuddered violently, and she stumbled. Time slowed, and she felt that suffocating weight wrap around her legs once more. Heart racing, Lila yanked herself free, pushing against the cold earth, clenching the jacket like a talisman. It was all she had left of Ella. Dark tendrils lashed out, curling around her arms, tugging her back like malicious hands yearning to reclaim their prize. You are too late, foolish woman. A voice boomed from the depths of the gloom. It was a cacophony of laughter, filled with twisted glee, a taunting echo that pricked her chest with icy fingers. Lila fought harder, the need to save her daughter igniting a flicker of defiance. You won, take her. She roared, shredding through despair, channeling every ounce of her love into that desperate cry, and then silence. The shadows recoiled as if burned by her words. The figures shifted, mouths agape but soundless like puppets with their strings cut. Lila gasped for air, each breath tasting of raw dread and fleeting hope. Mommy! Ella's voice pierced through the silence. It was smaller than she remembered, strained, but real. It cut through the lingering dread, igniting a fierce warmth in Lila's heart. Help me! The fog swirled, revealing a glimmering path beyond the swing set, the way forward bathed in an ethereal glow. Lila seized the moment. The chance was fleeting, her only option. With renewed strength, she charged for the light and the figure of her daughter, the darkness giving way, the tendrils faltering. But they still grasped desperately at her legs, refusing to let her go, pulling her back into the abyss. Hold on, sweetheart! Lila shouted, reaching out, half in terror, half in hope. I'm almost there. As she stepped into the light, the shadows shrieked, a sound beyond understanding, a tormenting wail that echoed through her bones. The air hummed with tension, electricity crackling along her skin, as the unseen barrier shifted. Would she make it? Would the light protect her daughter? Or would they both be consumed, drawn back into the darkness that hungered for them? And just as Lila began to believe they might escape, a figure stepped out from the swirling shadows, a heart-wrenching silhouette, a face she recognized all too well. Let her go! Lila cried, the horror twisting into despair as recognition hit. The figure smirked, and the shadows rippled with delight. Welcome to the family, Lila. What did they want from her? Who had become so twisted? The answers loomed ahead like a thunderous storm, threatening to crash down at any moment, and Lila raced against time. Could she still save Ella, or was hope just another cruel trick the darkness had played? Lila felt the chill crawl into her bones, freezing her blood. The familiar face from her past twisted in the darkness, distorting notions of comfort and hope into something grotesque. It was her sister, Molly, long gone, lost to the cruel world they had grown up in, and yet here she stood, trapped between shadows, her expression a mix of malice and longing. "Am Molly?" Lila's voice trembled, the name slipping like ice from her lips. "What happened to you?" Molly's smile widened, a grin that dripped a sinister anticipation. "You never did understand, did you? Family is everything. Even in death, we bind ourselves to one another, forever." The shadows around her shifted, forming a web of darkness that seemed to pulse with her words. "Let Ella go!" Lila screamed, each word laced with urgency. Just behind the figure, she could sense Ella's presence, a flicker of light dimming as the shadows encroached, hungry and eager. "Sweet little Ella," Molly cooed, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "She belongs with us now. She deserves to know her true family. Don't you want that for her?" Lila's heart raced as Molly's malicious laughter echoed in her mind. She couldn't believe what she was hearing, it was absurd. Ella didn't belong here. Ella belonged with her, and Lila would tear apart hell itself to retrieve her. "No!" Lila shouted, desperate to drown out her sister's taunts. "You're not family. You're a monster." It felt good to lash out, to feel some power amidst the suffocating dread. The shadows responded with a loud hiss, almost as if struck by her words. Lila took a shaky step forward, ready to confront her sister, but the moment was fleeting. Dark tendrils shot out, wrapping around her wrists, pulling her back. She fought against them, clawing at the darkness, her breath quickening as panic began to set in. "No, Lila!" Molly hissed, her voice dripping in disappointment. "You don't belong in the light. You've always been one of us." The shadows surged, and Lila's thoughts spiraled. Could it be true? Had she ever truly escaped? Fragments of her childhood broke open in her mind, whispers of family secrets that clawed at the edges of her memories, dark corners where trust had once lived and now only despair reigned. "Molly, please," she pleaded, feeling the rawness in her throat. "This isn't who we are. Isn't it?" Molly's laugh pealed like thunder, shaking the ground beneath Lila's feet. "You think you can outrun your blood? You ignore the truth. We are drawn to this darkness just like the flies to decay." With every word, the shadows surged closer, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. Lila could feel the anger pushing back against her fear, a storm brewing within. "I won't end up like you. Ella won't. I'll save her, and I'll save myself." She pushed against the shadows, feeling the hints of strength linger in her heart. For every tendril that pulled her back, she pushed harder, redoubling her efforts, the determination forging a path forward. Just as she thought she could break through, Molly extended her hand, a deep hum resonating through the air. "Come back to me, Lila. We can be a family again. You will never have to feel alone." An unbearable sadness washed over her as Lila realized her sister was lost forever, a puppet to the darkness, a dream rotted beneath the weight of despair. "I want my daughter," Lila shouted, feeling the surge of raw emotion flood her veins. "No one can escape what they truly are," Molly sang, the shadows roaring with her words, echoing the truth that rang cold in Lila's heart. In that echo, Lila saw promises unraveling, revealing their monstrous faces behind a mask of family and love. What if Ella, too, felt this magnetic pull toward darkness? As this thought took root, the ethereal glow of the playground flickered, almost extinguished. Lila's resolve flickered with it. Without warning, Molly lunged, a dark flash in the air. "Join us!" With a scream, Lila felt the shadows close in again, the darkness clawing back, eager for her to join its family. As the shadows swallowed her whole, Lila fought the cold, reaching deep inside for that last spark, her love for Ella. But the darkness crept close, and the last shred of light began to fade. Would she be consumed in the same cycle as Molly? And as Lila felt herself slipping further into shadows, a whisper curled through the chaos, "What would you sacrifice to save her?" In that moment of terror, she realized she had yet to confront the ultimate question. What price would she pay to rescue her daughter from the depths of darkness? Lila plunged into an abyss of blackness, suffocating and thick. The shadows pressed against her, clamoring, desperate for her to give in. Her heart pounded, reverberating in her chest like a caged animal. "Ella!" She screamed, the sound swallowed whole by the void. Tendrils of darkness twisted around her, tightening like a noose. She could barely think, the weight of memories and fear squeezing her mind. In the recesses of her panic, she caught glimpses of images, flashes of Ella's bright smile, the warmth of her little hand in Lila's. Those memories became her lifeline as she fought against the darkness that sought to consume her. "Fight it!" a voice within her urged. She clung to that voice, wanting to believe she was stronger than the clutches of this nightmare. But the shadows pulsed like a living thing, and with each ripple, Molly's voice surged in her ears, mocking and taunting. "Why do you resist? You're already ours, Lila." The whispers echoed, weaving through her mind like a spider's web. In an instinctual burst of rage, Lila broke free from the grip of the shadows momentarily. A shard of light flickered on the periphery, an illusion, a cruel tease. "Ella!" She shouted again, each syllable filled with desperate hope and determination. The shadows recoiled, churning as if afraid of what light might expose. Just beyond where her vision blurred, she saw flickered forms, a child's silhouette, small and innocent. It had to be Ella. "Hang on!" Lila lunged, propelled by the force of her love, pushing onward against the tangible weight of gloom. The shadows recoiled again, but as her foot crashed against the unseen ground, a deafening boom echoed, shaking the darkness around her. "Do you really think you can save her?" Molly taunted, her form bending and swaying in the chaotic landscape. "You are but a moth to this flame, Lila. We belong to each other forever. Are you willing to let go?" Those words gnawed at Lila's resolve, planting seeds of doubt. The chilling truth seeped into her thoughts. Hadn't she always felt besieged by shadows? With each frightening revelation, she battled flashes of childhood fears, her sister's whispers weaving through her nightmares. "No!" Lila cried, fueling her defiance. "She's my daughter. You're not my family. You don't know what love is." Anger coursed through her veins, and in her fury, the shadows hissed as if struck, yet the darkness tightened, trapping her in its grasp. The cold was suffocating, filling her lungs with dread. She tried to remember the light, the playground, the laughter, Ella's warmth. Those memories were flickering out like dying embers. "Help me, Ella!" she pleaded, her voice cracking, a crack in the darkness. The world around her shifted, the shadows trembling with uncertainty, then, as if in answer, a flicker of brilliance burst forth, a beam igniting the darkness, carving lines through the black. "Mommy!" A small voice broke through, like a bell chiming in a dead silence. Lila's heart leapt at Ella's name, turning the gears of her soul. "I'm right here. I'm coming." She surged forward, each step igniting a spark of rebellion. The shadows hissed in rage, clawing back, trying to latch onto her, but she kept moving, lunging toward the light, toward her daughter, but as she closed the distance, the dark forms writhed, Molly at the center, a tempest of anger and despair, blocking the way. "You cannot take her, Lila. She is too deep within us. Stay away." Lila snapped, summoning every shred of strength left within her. The air crackled with an invisible charge, the calm before the storm breaking in deadly ferocity. In that moment, Lila felt a cold dread consume her once again, a thought dreadfully clear: would she have to face off against the very essence of what she feared? With Ella's flickering light ahead, could she even bear to confront the hell her sister had become to reclaim what was hers? The shadows vibrated with an unanswered scream, the battleground set, as Lila prepared for the ultimate showdown. Could she reclaim Ella from the depths of this darkness? Or would the shadows take them both? The darkness swirled like a living beast, flickering eyes staring through the void, taunting her. Lila felt the hairs on the back of her neck prickle as Molly's laughter echoed, a sinister melody in the suffocating black. You think you can fight me? You're weak, just like before. Shut up. Lila screamed, clenching her fists. The agony of despair clawed at her throat, but she wouldn't back down. Anger surged within, flooding her mind with warmth, a stark contrast to the cold numbness surrounding her. Through the haze, Ella's voice pulsed like a heartbeat. Mommy! Help me! Each pleading cry tore through the shadows, igniting something deep within Lila. She could feel the thoughts swirling around her, memories twisted into weapons meant to break her spirit. Images of her childhood flashed before her, lonely nights filled with whispers and shadows, and the crushing weight of betrayals echoing in the dark corners of her mind. Oh, Ella, I want to let them take you, she said, forcing her feet to move, breaking from the grip of freezing panic that held her in place. But the darkness shrieked, spinning around her like a storm. Tendrils of despair lashed out, scratching at her skin, trying to pull her back. You're just prolonging the inevitable, Lila. You joined us willingly when you let fear rule your heart. Lila gritted her teeth. Fear. It had haunted her all her life, wrapped itself around her like a shroud. But now, Ella's light was her beacon. The thought of her daughter being swallowed whole by this darkness lit a fire inside her, an undeniable force driving her forward. Molly. You don't control me. With a deep breath, Lila charged into the fray, cutting through shadows like a blade. The dark entity writhed, a cacophony of anguished screams rising in protest, but Lila pressed on. Ella! I'm coming! Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet shifted violently, as if the abyss was alive. She stumbled, arms flailing, barely steadying herself. It felt as if she was standing on the edge of a cliff, the world collapsing into a void beneath her. Do you want to see what I've given her? Molly taunted, her voice dripping with malice. The shadows formed grotesque images, distorted versions of Lila's sweetest memories. A mockery of the good times spent with Ella, twisted into nightmares. Lila's heart thumped louder, realizing this was a tactic to destabilize her resolve. But with every memory, she fought against despair, focusing on the real moments, the smiles, the hugs, the screams of joy in the playground. Get out of my head! She yelled, the anger pushing back the tide of shadows overwhelming her thoughts. She could feel the flicker of light growing stronger, resonating with the power of her love, a light revealing truths that frightened her even more than the dark. Is that really how you remember? Molly hissed, anger boiling beneath her words as the darkness surged forward, more aggressive. You never had it easy, Lila. I am what you created. No! Lila roared defiantly, the words bursting forth like a dam breaking. You may be my past, but you don't define me. The shadows recoiled, hissing and swarming in frantic disarray as Lila pressed on. With each step, the light grew, illuminating her path like a guiding star in the bleakest of skies. But just ahead, twisted forms congealed around Ella's silhouette. A final barrier, the embodiment of all her fears, and Molly herself. Where do you think you're going? Molly bellowed, rage emanating from her enfleshed darkness. You're merely a vessel. You can't save her. But as Lila closed her eyes, envisioning only warm embraces and sunshine, she felt the power surge within her. Could love truly conquer the dark? What would it take to shatter the glass of illusions? Ella, she cried out once more, ready to confront her greatest fear. And as the war of wills erupted, a piercing scream, unfamiliar yet haunting, seeped through the very fabric of the shadows, sending chills racing down Lila's spine. What new horror awaited just beyond the veil? Would the light be enough? Lila felt the weight of shadows pressing closer, their icy fingers wrapping around her heart. Memories of laughter collided with echoes of sorrow, forging the very battleground where she would face the ultimate decision. Ella's figure danced just out of reach, her innocent gaze flickering like a beacon through the dark. "Stay strong, baby," Lila whispered, fighting against the rising tide of despair. "You're too late." Molly's twisted version of family mocked, a grin stretching across her face that sent chills down Lila's spine. With each taunting word, the shadows shrieked, vibrating with malicious glee, as if savoring the fight. "Join us. Ella deserves to know her true family. No. She deserves to grow. She deserves life." Lila cried, feeling both terrified and powerful. The memories began to wash over her like a flood: cooked meals shared, bedtime stories that lasted long into the night, spontaneous trips to the park. Those moments were pure gold, untarnished by darkness. Suddenly, the abyss quaked, releasing a silence laden with electricity. The shadows recoiled as if Lila's resolve struck at their very marrow. She took a step forward, feeling the warmth radiate from within her as a defiant roar fueled by maternal love ignited her soul. "Ella! I'm coming!" She dashed towards her daughter, fueled by that divine spark, but Molly's laughter surged, filling the air with bitter malice. "You think you can escape the shadows that bind us? You were born from darkness, Lila. Fight it if you can." As she ran, the ground trembled, shadows clawing at her legs, trying to drag her back. Every inch forward felt laborious, a monumental effort against the grief and dread tearing at her heart. Lila's chest tightened, but Ella's calls rang clear in her ears, a melody that dispelled the fear. "Mommy." The familiarity struck her deeper than any shadow ever could. "Ella!" she vociferated, desperation sharp as a knife. Bursting from the murky haze, a glimmer shimmered, a sliver of hope that beckoned. Fueled by adrenaline, memories of their shared laughter surged through her, and with each recollection, the hands of shadows began to falter. She was their mother, and her bond was forged in love, something the darkness could never extinguish. Then, as if the ground itself was self-aware, a chasm opened beneath Molly. The shadows split, pulling the ghastly figure backward, and Lila pushed forward. "I will take my daughter back. Release her." The moment those words left her lips, a wave of warmth flooded the air, expanding the light around her. Distorted figures shrieked, their anguished cries echoing through the void as they fell back into the darkness, losing their hold on her. Lila sprinted, crushing fear beneath her feet, her spirit unyielding. Ella burst from the shadows, light cascading around her as Lila closed the distance. "Mommy!" Her daughter's voice ascended into a crescendo of joy and despair, pulling Lila forward. With one last push, Lila threw herself towards her daughter, wrapping her arms around her. In that instant, a blinding flash erupted, silencing everything, until nothing remained but the warmth of sunlight bathing them both. The shadows wailed in lament, rippling into nothingness as love brushed away neglect. "You're my everything," Lila whispered as they embraced, her tears mingling with the warmth of sunlight streaming down. Lila could feel Ella pressing her small form against her, heart beating steady and strong. Suddenly, the echoes of Molly faded. Lila stood frozen in warmth, clutching Ella tightly, relief washing over them both. The darkness was still, and the air felt new. "Mommy," Ella murmured, sniffling softly, the innocence returning to her eyes. "I was scared." Lila's heart ached with the weight of it all. "I know, sweetheart. But it's over now. You're safe. I won't let those shadows take you ever again." Together, they walked toward the edges of newfound light, the haunting memories dispersing into gentle wisps, a past forever changed. Lila glanced back once, feeling the presence of her sister like a whisper of wind that pinched at her heart. But knew that the right choice was made. Looking ahead, she took a breath, allowing healing light to wash over them both. "Let us go home, my love." The sun was bright, each ray a promise of new beginnings, and Lila knew their bond had weathered the worst. As they stepped forward, a ripple of hope ignited in her heart, a promise etched in defiance against the night. United, she and Ella would carry on. Now, if you loved this story and want to see more captivating tales, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for exclusive content that you won't want to miss. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the stories coming. Don't wait even one more second to flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you, and if you know friends who need to see this conclusion, instantly share this video with at least 5 of them. Thank you for being part of this journey.